Hello, and welcome to the new episode of Dakota Boys Talk Movies. On this episode, we are going to talk mini movies, just like the title implies. On this episode, we're continuing our going back 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, which we've done the 30 years with 1990, and now we're going back 20 years to the year 2000. What a year, Dakota.
Yeah, we've already hit the golden years. I guess it's on to the bronze years. I wouldn't necessarily award this year the silver.
I think this year is maybe, we were kind of looking in like maybe this year gets like a participation trophy overall. I mean, there's some good ones in there, but maybe just a green ribbon.
Conflict diamonds. That's what this year deserves. Conflict diamonds.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, so the year 2000, this was a year that I think maybe there's a lot of promise just because 99 was such a big year, which in fact, Dakota, you've talked about that year.
Oh, yes.
We've talked about it quite extensively just because so many iconic movies and movies that kind of maybe showed what the future of movies could be and would be going forward. But then we come to the year 2000. And like I said, I don't know. This was what I was noticing is when we did the 1990 year, there weren't that many like standout comedies. You know, we were kind of bringing that up. And I think it's because now it just seems like we're inundated with comedies. And here I look and I'm like, is this where it started? Because we had, in 2000, Scary Movie, the first one, Meet the Parents, the first one, Bring It On, the first one, Miss Congeniality, the first one, you know, Big Mama's House, the first one. It was all these movies that were okay or terrible. You know, mostly terrible comedies that got a bunch of sequels.
Well, it's kind of, oh man, this is around the time when originality in Hollywood kind of just died.
And I think that's what made this year seem so bleak in a way, because 99 gave a lot of hope that there was originality. You know, we were seeing like people trying new things and we're like, oh man, this new millennium that's coming is going to be... And granted, we are getting there. There has been things that have pushed a little bit more, but it definitely wasn't this year so much.
Yeah, this was one of those years where, you know, it is so weird looking back on things. The movies that were hits that probably should have gotten sequels.
Sure.
Were never made, absolutely. But like Big Mama's House, like that was such a hit. Like, you know, we needed a follow up.
Yeah, it was such a hit that they even went on to make a continuation where Martin Lawrence wasn't even the one in the fat suit. It was like his movie character's son. It was like, yeah, I mean, that's how far it's gone.
Yeah, and it's just, it's like, and there's one movie that came out this year that I feel like just kind of started kind of this horror movie wise, like let's just take like a somewhat interesting concept and make a movie about it like, as quick as we can, cash in on it, and then make a crappy sequel. And that's Final Destination.
Yeah, Final Destination. Because then when did Final Destination 2 come out? Was it in 01 or was it 02?
No, it was, I think it was a few years later, because Ellie Lauder looked like, in the second one, she had obviously gained a lot more popularity, and she didn't kind of look as, there was more focus on her character than it seemed like anyone else in the...
Well, she was one of the few that survived.
Yeah.
So
Dylan Sawa's character survived. They just killed his character in the kind of beginning of the movie. In the sequel.
Yeah. That was kind of the Final Destination, I feel like, was kind of the beginning of the end of his career. Really, you don't really see him in much anymore.
Hey, there was that movie that Fred Durst made last year that he was in with John Travolta.
What was that?
Oh, I forget the name of it. It was one of those movies that was really bad, but people wanted to talk about it because it was something new, and it was from Fred Durst.
Wow. Well, that's good. He's still getting jobs, I guess. Yeah. So I mean, we had all those things going on, which kind of started accidental franchises that nobody really asked for. uh, but there are a few diamonds in the rough in here, I will say. Uh, one that one that I would like to bring up is Chicken Run. This movie is excellent. uh, it first off just shows the wonderful art form of stop motion at its finest, and it also is kind of a parody of The Great Escape, which I think is great because when you think about the demographic Chicken Run was made for, it was not made for kids who would even know what The Great Escape was. But it also allowed it to be a smart enough movie where parents and adults can enjoy it too. And you have the American chicken that shows up in this British hen yard voiced by Mel Gibson in one of his few animated movie voice roles. Because I think the one he did before this he was John Smith in Pocahontas, and is that about it for him as far as animated movies?
Yeah, I think it is.
Probably. But oh man, Chicken Run, that's a good one. I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, this was kind of the year where his kind of signaled the decline of his career because he had What Women Want, and I think that was it basically. Because that movie, even though I never cared for it, it
But it
was
was a
still
huge hit.
yeah.
It was like a huge hit, and he was kind of. This was kind of the year his star started to rise a little bit because then the next year he would have had We Were Soldiers, that Vietnam movie, and then he would have been in like Signs, and then he was kind of on this rise where he was doing kind of some hit movies again, and then he did Passion of the Christ, which of course was a hit movie, but it sent him into a bad place, so to speak. Uh, but yeah, but another one we got to talk about from this year, Dakota, is this was back when Bruce Willis was still trying and not phoning it in his movies, and he did one of my favorite movies, Unbreakable.
One that's one of the gems of his career, though. I mean, like I'm not saying I hope he dies soon, but when he passes, it's like it's gonna be this Die Hard and well, what else is there? What else does he have?
I mean, I guess there's other things people enjoy him in, but I mean, those are probably his two biggest known, or like, because I mean, like people like him in Pulp Fiction, I guess, and stuff like that. But
That's
yeah, it wouldn't be shocking if like this is one like whenever he dies and they do the in memoriam thing, like this is one that comes up for sure. Sixth Sense, I guess, would be the other one that he's really
yeah.
kind of, which is kind of interesting because Sixth Sense came out in '99, and Unbreakable came out the very next year, and they were both M. Night Shyamalan starring Bruce Willis. So, and there's been talk of them doing a movie again together. The one that once Shyamalan's trying to get made that Bruce Willis is planning to star in. That I think is supposed to be a little bit more of a drama with supernatural things, but I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, the other big diamond in the rough from this year would be Gladiator. This movie was huge. I don't know how else to say it. It was just huge.
Yeah.
It made all of the money, and it won Best Picture for sure. Did Russell Crowe win for actor?
He did.
I always forget that one for some reason. But obviously, those were the two big awards it won. Oh, I'm
Well,
with.
didn't Ridley Scott win for director?
Yeah, and that's. Did he? He probably did. Because I don't know what
But
else
he
would have.
did win an Academy Award, and it would have been in the 2000s,
It
but
probably was this one. Because when you
it
look at some
sure
of the. Yeah, it
it
must
sure
have
wasn't
been.
for Prometheus or anything like that, or Hannibal.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of the other movies from this year, and I mean, obviously, it wasn't the Coen brothers, although they did have a movie come out this year, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which I actually find to be one of their more watchable movies. I enjoy Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, it's a pretty great movie. Oddly enough, they took inspiration from the Odyssey
Oh, very
in
much. Yeah. When you.
crafting this.
This movie, I mean, it. I mean, it doesn't even pretend. It tells you flat out it's the Odyssey. You know that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's even a Cyclops in it. In the
Yeah,
version of a man with one, like with an eye patch.
yeah. This movie. Oh man, I remember the soundtrack was everywhere the year it came out. Like you could not. Like
You,
MTV was even showing
yeah,
the
Man of
video for
Constant
the
Sorrow
movie.
music video. I will
Yeah,
admit, I have this soundtrack.
really.
Yes, I was a big fan of. I like. I'm not a country person, but I enjoy that bluegrass type music where I feel like this was a little more of that bluegrass. And so yeah, I did enjoy the music from this movie. I feel like the Coen brothers, that must be something they're very passionate about because I feel like all their movies, they really seem to work on how the music is done, and you can really tell that it seems like even a few of their movies have like a real like gospel type influence, or like where you could tell that must have been the kind of music they grew up with, because you kind of feel that in some of their other movies too. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed Oh Brother. Now let's see what else we got. We got X-Men.
Ah, yes. The movie that started it all for the X-Men.
The movie that started it. Well, yes. Now it's interesting that kind of looking at this because the X-Men animated series is still very extremely beloved. And I mean, I watched it, but not enough where, at the time when this came out, it wasn't like that animated series was like my life or something like some people. But I would imagine going into this movie, there was a lot of people who were fans of the animated series that were probably really disappointed in this movie. Because
You know, I
this movie had none of the color.
oh yeah, it's I always viewed it as it got the ball rolling, and what makes me sad is like everything kind of culminated in Days of Future Past at the very end. Like we were seeing the X-Men, like I think as the way Bryan Singer kind of envisioned him when he started making these,
Yeah,
where it's like you saw Rogue and Cyclops is leading the team, and just Colossus was there, and everyone's favorite was there, and it's just like that's how it ended. Um, and I'd always hoped they would get to there, especially considering how great the second one was. Um, and yeah, I just kept I I envisioned each movie kind of picking up steam, and we can see more mutants like the cool ones from the cartoon, because I was in love with the cartoon. But yeah, it just things got bad once Bryan Singer left, and they continued to just spiral downward.
yeah, and part of me wonders, even if Bryan Singer would have stayed on. I mean, we're hearing more and more stories about him where he seems like a really sporadic. He's not a great leader, is what you hear about how his film sets are, and he'll show up late, and just sometimes was disorganized. You hear these stories, and so it's like that glimpse we see at the end of Days of Future Past. Yeah, maybe that's where his vision was, but would he have really ever gotten it there anyway? Even if would X-Men 3 have looked really that much different? If he would have still been at the helm.
It's weird to hear you say that because he put together Superman Returns like incredibly fast. I think that maybe that was his passion project. He's like, oh, I'm doing a Superman movie that it's in the same universe that the Donner movies were in, and
Yeah,
oh,
and
that
what was
was
the same with X-Men 3? X-Men 3 came together really fast too, where there wasn't a whole lot of time for that one. Uh but yeah, I don't like I said, I don't know, it's just like you just hear like I said a lot of stories about his he seems committed one day and not the other, and then that's when a lot of the questions started to arise about his private life as far as like drugs and just all that stuff. But yeah, but the thing is, let's get back to I guess when you talk about the ball rolling. This got the ball rolling not just with X-Men either. I mean, this was kind of the litmus test for just a lot of other studios who had superhero movies they were considering, but weren't sure quite how to do it. And they're like, oh, people are kind of because this movie was a decent hit, when it came out, even though it was maybe not the best in the series, where it's kind of what got Spider-Man to happen when it did. And then I think Christopher Nolan has even pointed to this movie when he said it's kind of what got him to be on board when he was approached about Batman. And because he was kind of like, we realized it could work. This was when he realized a superhero movie could be interesting, I guess. Because I think what X-Men had mostly going for it the best, this one, was its leads with Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, and Hugh Jackman especially. Those three leads really got you invested in this movie, even if there were other things that you didn't care for as much. Don't you think, Dakota?
Oh, I thought they were all great. I thought Patrick Stewart was spot on as Professor X. I thought he fit the character perfectly.
Yeah. I thought Ian McKellen did too. I really liked the way he kind of did Magneto, where he was villainous, but like there was still enough to him where you kind of understood him too. Something that I think Fassbender was good at kind of doing too a little bit when he inherited the role. But yeah, it was. I don't know. It's maybe a lukewarm movie in some ways, but like you said, X-Men 2 is a great movie.
Yeah. Just to kind of put things in perspective, I never thought in a million years this movie would lead to something like Dark Phoenix being made. It just, that's how optimistic I was, or even X-Men Origins.
Or Dark Phoenix being made twice.
But it's just, I feel like it had so much potential. And it's like, one just kind of wonders, like, what exactly happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think this was kind of in that era when that one guy was running Fox, wasn't he? Tom. What was his name?
Oh, the guy who
Tom Rathman or
Tom Rothman.
Yeah, wasn't he running at this time? And he kind of was all over the place. That's why Fox had kind of weird decisions made at points.
Yeah, he's at Sony now, and that's some people have kind of blamed him for that all-female led Ghostbusters movie being the way it was.
Oh, sure. Let's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna move on, but if you have something more to say, it's fine.
Oh, nothing. Nope, not at all.
I was just kind of looking here. Where are you on Castaway? That's one where I kind of like that movie.
I I like it. It's just, I don't know. When you look back on the movie, it's just like there's. It seems like there's only like a handful of scenes that you really fondly remember.
Sure.
Uh, the movie just kind of ended in a bizarre way, and it's, how do you end a movie like that? Like maybe it should have ended like when him and Helen Hunt kind of had their scene, and he's talking to his friend out of that. Maybe it should have ended there.
Yeah, maybe.
I remember, oh, good lord, after this movie came out, just people would not stop just screaming Wilson
Oh
randomly.
my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, I remember even oh god, a few years after this movie there was an Owen Wilson led movie called Behind Enemy Lines, which some of you may remember. It had Owen Wilson and Gene Hackman. And I remember they kick a football off of a aircraft carrier and you see it floating in the water and they scream Wilson in that movie. And it was just like, oh, here we
Oh,
go. It's even starting to show up in. Because I was even trying to remember. I was like, I think that movie was supposed to take place in 1995 or something. So, like, it doesn't even make any sense. But it was directed
yeah,
by John Moore, who did our favorite Die Hard movie, Die Hard 5, and Max
yeah,
Payne and things like that. So he wasn't really thinking about that maybe too hard.
yeah. From what I remember, it was supposed to take place during the Kosovo War, which happened when Bill Clinton was president.
Yeah, like I think it was supposed to be like 95. Was maybe when that movie is supposed to be, but
Yeah,
uh
it's weird. I do remember that movie was written by oh, what are the names? I just always call them the Thomas brothers, but they're the ones that wrote the script for the original Predator.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and Behind Enemy Lines was supposed to be a little bit of a prestige movie when it came out, and it isn't bad. I mean, it's a little cheesy now, but it was like it's one of those movies where you watch you're like, boy, this could have been a whole lot better. And but I think part of it is just like when you look at the movies that director has done, he's just it's kind of how all of his movies are. Like, oh, this could have been better.
Yeah, and oh man, those last kind of the last few movies Gene Hackman did, and this sounds bad, but I think the one where I really liked him was The Replacements, and everything else he was just so bland. It's like, why is he even in
You
this?
love Welcome to Mooseport, and you know it. Oh man, yeah, I know what you mean though. He kind of went out like a wet fart. So, uh, let's see what else we got here. Snatch, where you at with Snatch, Dakota?
This is, man, my I kind of have ups and downs with Guy Ritchie movies. Um,
Yeah,
but
let's pause there a second. Speaking because you liked King Arthur, right?
I did.
I'm gonna admit to you, I'm okay with it too. So we're on the same page there. uh, I mean, I understand. It's completely understandable that it bombed, but it's not as bad as people say. But anyway, I know what you mean about Guy Ritchie. But sorry, go on.
I completely lost my train of thought, but no, I just this one I think works just because of who they have acting in it. Like you got Brad Pitt playing that gypsy Irishman. The only way I could describe him. Um, Jason Statham in this is I think hysterical. Vinny Jones, I loved in this, and
Sure.
probably still my favorite movie of his, even after his amazing performance in X3.
What is Vinny Jones' deal? Because acting wasn't his first thing, right? Wasn't he?
He was well, they call what they refer to as football, is what he was in.
Yeah, he was like a soccer or football player.
And he got involved in acting because I don't know. I think it was one of those things where people just uh, thought he was one of those larger than life people that needed to be on screen.
Yeah. Well, he's
And
kind of
man,
he has a big personality.
little tidbit about Vinny Jones: he was actually arrested in South Dakota for beating up a guy.
Yeah. Yes, he was. Like, what was that? Like, not even that super long ago.
Oh, I think it was 8 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
So if you're out there, tell us what
uh,
it was like getting knocked out by a living legend, I guess.
I I'm guessing it couldn't have felt good. I mean, this guy was a European soccer player. I'm guessing he probably gave
You
you.
know, that's the thing about European soccer players, not known for having very muscular arms. It
Yeah,
won't hit me. I
but I
might.
mean, he's not. It's not like he's. But he's a UK guy. Those UK guys are usually pretty. What's the word? Scrappy. I guess would be the only word I can think of to describe it. So
Yeah.
yeah, Jason. This was kind of what put Jason Statham on the map a little bit, at least in America, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is interesting because he's such a total weenie in this movie. Just totally spineless. Well, not completely spineless, but
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Considering his next movie would be The Transporter, and then he just became like the cool guy ever since. So to where he's basically a superhero by the time Hobbs and Shaw came out. I mean, let's admit it. Him and The Rock are basically superheroes in that movie.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay, I will admit it. This Snatch is one of the bright spots of this year, but
yeah, and that's what I guess what we're kind of looking at right now is there are bright spots. It's just that it's just a weird year as far, but that's what makes it kind of interesting because then you have I don't know. There's the Aaron Brockovich. That was a big deal, I guess. So there you go. There was that. Meet the Parents. That was a huge deal. Oh my gosh. What did you like that at the time?
oh no, I thought it was completely overhyped.
It kind of was. It's kind of one of those though where you when you see it, you're kind of like, "Well, I get why people like this, but did it need two more movies?" No. No, it didn't. It very much didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, here's my favorite. This is probably my favorite movie that has doves.
Oh God.
Mission Impossible 2. There are so many doves in this movie and slow-mo. Oh, this is the weirdest Mission Impossible entry by far.
You know, I just think back to the trailer for this, and it was just, it's just, it left you feeling with like, oh, this is gonna be just action packed,
Yeah,
and it's
just
gonna be just,
beginning to end. Yeah.
and it came out, and it's like, what are we watching? Like, oh man, it made after seeing this, it. I wish I could go to the original actors from the Mission Impossible TV show and like, what did you think of this? Because you know their reactions were going to be priceless.
It was just like a weird, bizarre love triangle, and then they tried to do the whole thing that every movie was doing at this time with the whole biological weapon angle, and I don't know. And then, of
You,
course, it was
you know,
it had to have that motorcycle chase that Tom Cruise loves to do.
I have a theory as to why movies started doing that whole biological terror might get in the hands of terrorists. Beavis and Butthead did that perfectly, and everybody loved that movie because it was so much fun. And everyone's like, "We got to copy Beavis and Butthead." Who knew?
Yeah, well, maybe you never know. The weirdest things end up being inspirations. Oh man. Well, that's enough of Mission Impossible 2. Speaking of inspiration, Remember the Titans came out this year.
Yes.
Still pretty good. I'm not gonna
I
lie, that's still a pretty good movie.
yeah it. I don't feel like I was. Yeah, I was never really into this movie, and I don't know why.
Well, I mean, as much as uh, X-Men kind of kicked off the superhero movies, just carrying forward to all we have now. I feel like even though there were true story sports movies before this, Remember the Titans started this trend of how we get so many of them now. Where it's like I mean, think about it. Once this movie came out, how many more there were, and everyone was like, the best since Remember the Titans.
Yeah,
You know, you always heard that, or that one wasn't quite as good as Remember the Titans. You know, so even though we all know Miracle's the best one, so just gonna say it. So
yeah. I was never really a fan of kind of the sports movie. I guess Rocky's kind of far as it went for me, but
sure.
Hoosiers, I was just completely no. It was fine, but I didn't think it was one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, and some of the ones I like. The reason I like it has nothing to do with the sport part. You know, like Miracle being my favorite one. It was more like the story.
D2, the Mighty Ducks.
The story behind everything was interesting. Yeah, D2, the Mighty Ducks. It was really more about Bombay getting caught up and selling out. So, yeah, and even Hoosiers. It was kind of more about Gene Hackman's character kind of redeeming himself after having a certain situation happen at a different school and things like that. But the best ones kind of always have kind of that transcendence angle. And I guess Remember the Titans is that way too, which is probably why it was like the best to a lot of people, because it was more about, oh, this school had to learn to integrate and work together and things like that.
I will take that back. I thought Coach Carter was pretty good, but apparently I'm in the minority there.
Yeah. You're not the only person I've heard say that. That movie does have people who really stick up for it. I don't know. It was one I just totally missed out on, but you're not the first person who's been like, you know what, I really like Coach Carter.
Maybe it's because it was, I don't know, Samuel L. Jackson really led it, and then it's just not about the coach too. You really get a feeling for the players, and you kind of start to sympathize with them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But I tend to think like maybe if you're gonna do a sports movie, that's kind of how it should be. Like not maybe put like a focus on the coach so much, like because when I think if you're gonna do that, then you might as well like do something like Patton, or you're just like, oh man, this dude's just like charismatic. You'd go knock the socks off the other team just for the coach, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well here's one. Traffic. Steven Soderbergh's drug epic.
Once again, I feel like this movie was just way overhyped. Isn't this the movie that kind of, Benicio del Toro was kind of around forever, but isn't this the movie that kind of put him on the map? Where
it is,
like, this guy is so good.
And I think a lot of it is that he's easily the best thing about this movie. I mean, he's the main one you like, the main one you're kind of rooting for in a lot of ways. Yeah, because after this movie, it would have been like when he started getting more starring roles, like The Hunted and things like that. So, yeah. But it was, I mean, part of what helped to get hyped was just the fact that it was another Soderbergh movie. And people just have always loved him since he started. And there was some interesting ideas in this movie, but overall it's kind of all over the place in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think you had to kind of be living through the times, kind of like in your 30s, to really appreciate this movie.
Yeah, maybe.
Because some people were citing this movie like, oh, I didn't know like the drug situation was that bad. It's like, well, let me tell you, I'm not involved in it. I can tell you it's bad.
It's not good. I can tell you that.
But in a related note, I once saw a meme, and it was a picture of a Nintendo GameCube.
Okay.
And it said, if you grew up playing this, you grew up during one of the worst drug pandemics in human history. And I laughed so hard. I should have tagged you in it, but I was like, yeah, I'll save that one for later. 2 years later, here we are.
Here we are.
Better late than never, right?
Oh, man. That's that's funny.
Oh, all right, moving on.
Moving on here. What do we got? Oh, Pitch Black. How do you feel about the Rick movies?
Uh, I the second one I admired just because it had so much just insanity going on in it.
Yeah, that was Chronicles of Riddick, right?
Yes,
Yeah, you gotta give them props for just going for it. I
but
mean, they just went full big scope.
yeah, this one it seemed kind of you look back at it now and it seems like a sci-fi movie, like something that was on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Well, and wasn't the movie produced by USA?
Oh, I think so.
Like I think so. It kind of, in a way, was just an elevated TV movie in certain
And,
ways.
yeah, I remember after this movie, people were looking at Vin Diesel like he was the new Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was just kind of like, well, he was okay.
Yeah, and in some ways, if you look at just box office success, he's probably bigger than Arnold now. Just because
Yeah.
of what he's done as a producer with the Furious movies. Let alone anything else he does, which isn't too much these days. But yeah,
Yeah,
this definitely was the beginning of his star going up.
I didn't I didn't even really hear about this movie until it was yeah, people are gonna laugh at me, but it was on VHS, and me and my brother went to rent a movie, and he was just losing his mind. He's like, "Oh my gosh, it's out! We gotta rent this!" And I was just like, "Okay." And
Okay.
I sat through it, and it's funny because the main character is actually played by what's her name, Rana Mitchell,
Yeah. Yep.
but people completely forget she was even in that movie.
She kind of has that tendency because she's also in a few years later. She was in the movie Rain of Fire.
Oh yeah,
She's like the helicopter pilot. Isn't that her that's in? No, never mind. It wasn't Rada Mitchell. It was another woman who was in things. See, I'm already forgetting.
but I thought she held up pretty well. I mean, but it's just the main focus was on Riddick,
Right. Yeah.
which of course he got his own spin-off movie,
Yep.
two of them
Two
actually.
of them, and an animated show or
You
animated
know,
movie, and then a video game. It was kind of they tried to make it a whole thing.
actually, it was two video games, and the last one was pretty great. I'm just putting my stamp on it.
Who did the video games? What company?
Oh, I don't even remember, but it's kind of a unique game in that you weren't able to actually use any weapons until like later on.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you had to kind of rely on stealth
Just
and
surviving, huh?
yeah, and your mitts. That's all you had. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. Well,
go.
we'll move on here. I mean, what are we moving on to? Here we go. Oh,
More mediocrity.
yeah. Miscongeniality.
Oh boy.
Yeah. We'll move
It was
on.
good. It was good seeing William Shatner in something. I guess.
It gave us that great joke everybody likes to use every April.
Oh
Where,
gosh.
what's your favorite? What's your ideal day or whatever?
Ideal date, and then she is April whatever.
Yeah.
'Cause
Not
not
too
too hot.
hot. Just a light jacket.
Uh,
When that's
why?
the best
Why
joke
did?
from your movie. It gave William Shatner a good moment. So,
Yeah. One thing I don't like about this era of movies, it's when they had an incredibly attractive woman who's come off as kind of a loser and unattractive. Then they just like put makeup on her and do her hair, and it's like she's the hottest thing ever. It's like, oh my gosh.
yeah, it's silly cuz it's like even before she was just supposed to be like the tough as nails. It's like, well, she was still a pretty woman, you know. It's like you can't fool me that bad. So, yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of silly. Let's see here. The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
All right, movie of the year right here.
The Patriot?
Yes. Or as we like to call it back then, Braveheart 2, Men in Pants.
That is the best. Oh my gosh. How did I never think about that?
Wasn't this even written by Randall Wallace?
No.
Did he? Oh, I
No,
swear
you
he.
do you know who did this movie?
Um,
Roland Emmerich.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes. But I think it was written by one of those guys who like to do more historical movies like this, but somehow Emmerich got attached to direct it. I don't know how because he's German, but somehow this movie in its own weird melodramatic way is a good time. Jason Isaacs is great as the villainous British colonel you love to hate. Which he goes on to play Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies, which you love to hate him there too. So it's what he's good at.
Yeah, Heath Ledger's very famously in this.
Yeah, he does a good job as kind of that oldest son in that oldest son role. But yeah, I really enjoy this movie, even though it is a little maybe like I said, it's a little melodramatic.
Oh, what's the actor that was the British general?
Oh, Wilkinson.
Yeah, Tom Wilkinson. This
Yeah.
put him on the map, I remember, and good for him.
Yeah, and God, that one Vanessa Redgrave's daughter, Jolie
Oh,
Richardson, she plays
yeah.
like the aunt who becomes Mel Gibson's flame in this movie.
One of the kind of man, this movie would just made you want to grab a musket and rebel against the British Empire. But
Yeah, made me just want to grab a flag and start stabbing people like he did. But oh my gosh, Braveheart 2 Men in Pants. That's probably
there's
I remember when this movie does have some really intense scenes though.
oh my gosh, yeah, yeah. The
I
scene
mean,
where he's avenging his dead son.
oh
Holy
my
cow!
gosh, and he makes his two young sons be snipers basically, and it goes from being intense to emotional, and oh my gosh, yeah, it's you're kind of seeing a little like the Revolutionary War play out just from one man's perspective, and of course this wasn't a true story either, but just kind of a really decent movie that honestly probably shouldn't have been. So, yeah, that was a good one.
One of my favorite parts in this movie is Rene Auberjonois from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He plays a minister.
Yes.
He's shown joining up with them, and they're surprised he's going. And he says it's one line. It's like sometimes. You might know the line.
He says,
butcher it.
It is a great line. I'm going to butcher it too, but it was something in the vein of, they were like, "Why are you going?" And he said, "Sometimes the shepherd has to fight off wolves," or he says something in that vein, or like they like to protect the sheep. And yeah, that was a cool moment there, with him going, and then he ends up being a hero. So, but yeah, that was a good movie. Okay, you ready, Dakota?
All right, lay it on me.
Battlefield Earth.
Oh, so we go from one of the best movies of the year to one of the worst.
Oh,
all right.
Man, first off, what is this?
I'm gonna come out and just say it. I tried to read some L. Ron Hubbard's work, and I couldn't do it. I got the feeling that whoever wrote this was a madman under the influence of hard drugs.
Well, for one of those things I know is for sure a true fact. He is a madman.
But,
and somehow this movie shows what Scientology is. Somehow, Because are they supposed to be like the advancement of humans? I don't. What is going on in this movie?
I don't know. I forget who was the lead in this. Barry Pepper.
Barry Pepper was like the one of the people that was still like kind of dumb and
Yeah,
simple,
one of the humans.
and then John
Uh,
Travolta was like, obviously he was famously the weird. There is so much weird things in this movie.
yeah. Um, Such a great title is wasted on such a horrible movie. Can we just call this something else,
I
please?
know, because it does have this title that makes you seem like it's a very different movie. I think we can all just feel a sense of relief that Barry Pepper still has Saving Private Ryan and We Were Soldiers to fall back on as great movies he was in. As well as he's been in a few other things too that I've liked, but oh man.
Yeah, I mostly remember him from that the Showtime the HBO movie they made about what was that his name? Roger Maris and Broke
Oh yeah,
Papers.
61.
Yeah,
That was a good movie. Yeah. Yeah, and Thomas Jane, him and Thomas Jane played. He was Roger Maris and Thomas Jane was Mickey Mantle.
yeah, great movie.
Yeah,
Very,
Billy Crystal did that movie.
yeah. Him and his love of the Knicks, or wow, I just said the Knicks.
Well, he loves baseball. I know that. I don't know about the Knicks, but
He probably does. He's just in love with New York. Come on.
that's true. What wasn't he? What was that movie where he played a referee?
Oh,
Forget
yeah, the other
Paris or something.
something like that.
Oh, here we go. Here's another here's another weird future science fiction movie came out this year. Titan AE.
You know, I actually like this.
Do you? I
Yeah,
I
and I like
vaguely remember seeing it.
I like it mostly because the animation was really good.
Yeah.
Um, then it almost kind of seemed like it almost seems like a video game where you just got this ragtag group of people. They bind together, and there's an evil, almost unbeatable space aliens that are out to kill them. And
Yeah.
I was just
It
I'm trying to.
definitely was an ambitious movie.
I think Bill Pullman did one of the voices in there, and
Yeah, Matt Damon, I think, was the
yeah,
lead guy. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Bill
yeah.
Pullman. That's right. I think you're
It
right.
was intriguing because it's Earth gets destroyed by these aliens, and Earth humans have nowhere to go, so they kind of just stay in these spaceships, and they're considered like the trash of the galaxy. And that always intrigued me. I was like, oh man, things ain't looking good for the human race. So let's at least hope we put aside
Yeah.
our racist our racist and bigotry, our racism and bigotry at least.
Oh man. But
But
yeah, that was a really ambitious movie. It just didn't quite hit the mark for a lot of people. It didn't seem like with how it went over.
yeah, well, I think the thing that didn't help it is this is around that time when I think people were more excited for the kind of digital cartoons that were coming out, or the
Yeah, the Toy Stories, things like
yeah,
that. Yeah. It could
and I
be.
think and maybe they marketed this movie wrong because it was almost more for adults than it was for
That's
kids.
true. Yeah, cuz it was kind of yeah, that could be a case too where like the filmmakers maybe had different intention of who it was for than how the marketing team sold it.
Yeah.
Because that does happen with other movies. I mean, Batman Returns famously. So, let's see here. Uh, The Beach.
Oh God.
Well, I think okay, we brought it up. We can move on.
You know, I'm sensing a pattern. There's just nothing but overhyped movies on this.
Yeah, definitely overhyped. Well, between Leonardo DiCaprio and Danny Boyle, yeah, it was pretty overhyped.
Yeah, I remember.
Now here's one that was pretty hyped. I'm curious where you're at with it. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Ah, yes. Um, I thought at the time the visual The visuals of this movie were great.
Yeah.
I really didn't get the subtlety of it though. There's some very subtle scenes where things are going on,
Oh,
and
sure. Yeah.
I just, because I watched this much later, actually not that long ago, and it's just, there's uh, hints of it, but at the same time, people were kind of treating this as the Matrix, like
Yeah.
it was that big of a movie, and I was like, yeah, it's good, but
It was
I don't
supposed to
think
be
it,
like this is China's answer to the Matrix kind of thing or something.
yeah, I didn't think it was exactly like game changing, like, oh, this is completely revolutionizing everything, but
Yeah. It kind of gave America though Chow Yun Fat and Michelle Yeoh, which they both done some stuff here in America.
and we've squandered their talents. Let's
We
be honest.
have in a lot of ways. I mean, Bulletproof Monk, come on. He's
Oh,
better than that.
Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, that's
Just
right. Oh, shoot. Yeah, and then of course another kind of import movie that got big was Battle Royale, which was kind of like a more violent Hunger Games
yeah.
before Hunger Games.
I don't know. I really don't know what to say about this movie.
Yeah, I mean there's not. I mean,
It's okay, I guess. If you're a fan of dystopian kind of bleak movies, I think you'd really like this. But I didn't even realize that one of the main actresses in this was in Kill Bill till somebody pointed it out years later.
oh really?
Yeah, I can't remember the character's name, but it's the girl that uses like the whatever you call that thing on the chain that she used to attack the monster.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A movie that I really enjoy that kind of was pretty mixed, even though I think it was a moderate hit that came out this year was U571.
Oh, okay.
It's another one of those like, this one took place during World War II, but it wasn't a true story, but it was kind of like in honor of the men who fought in these types of situations. But it kind of also was my introduction to Matthew McConaughey. Was U571. I hadn't really seen him in anything before that because I saw U571 when it was pretty new on video, which would have been in this year 2000, and I was like, God, I kind of like that guy. And then I loved Reign of Fire, which he was in a few years later, which is just a crazy dragon movie that's actually awesome.
Yeah, I remember being kind of let down to this movie because the trailer for it made everything look like, oh, this is gonna be like an action-packed kind of thrill ride.
Yeah, and it's more of a tense movie,
Yeah,
more than action-packed, kind of a tense submarine thriller type movie.
yeah. This is around that time when it seemed like World War II movies were just getting made because Saving Private Ryan had done so well.
Yeah, it was easier to get the green light from the studio if you had a World War II idea because of Saving Private Ryan. Like Enemy at the Gates. We had that one come out too, which that was a true story. That movie butchered the story. So
Uh, I remember really liking that movie, but it probably hasn't aged well. I just remember
it aged.
about how
It's aged pretty rough, and once you read the true story of Vasily Zaitsev, that movie's pretty bad. Here's an interesting one. I thought this movie was older than this. Dungeons and Dragons.
oh, good
That
lord.
came out in 2000. Doesn't that seem like it was older than that?
Oh, isn't Thora Birch in that? I,
Yeah, looks like
I,
it.
it's like
And Jeremy Irons.
they just throw him in everything fantasy related, don't they?
They
Same
do. They do. What my only
Jared.
my only knowledge of this movie is actual D&D players hated it. That's
Yeah,
all I know about it.
Marlon Wayans is what I remember the most because he was so miscast in this movie.
There's a Waynes in this movie?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's interesting. But I'm still wrapping
Oh,
my head around that this came out in 2000. So
the really horrible CGI, yeah, just makes it look older than it is.
yeah, it has a on IMDb. I had to look this one up. It has a 3.6 out of 10,
Oh, gee.
and on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 10%. It was made for 35 and made 33 million. So it didn't even break even, especially if you figure in probably a little bit of advertising.
Oh
But
man.
it was just more shock that I mean, I just assumed that was like a 90s movie. So, another
Just
movie
me.
that was kind of a big deal this year when it came out was Space Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
That came out in 2000, which was where all the old guys have to go back to space for. I'm trying to remember the reason.
From what I remember, one of the characters, you find out that the Russians stole his design for a satellite or
Yeah,
something.
that I think it is something like that. It has to do with like a satellite thing.
And like the big reveal is once they're in space that the Russians like hid nukes on this satellite, and that's why they don't want it crashing into the Earth.
Yeah, I know it turns into a whole big thing, and then there's a sacrifice and all that good stuff that happens in movies. But I just remember when that came out, it was like a big deal because it was like all these old guys were going to be in the movie together. James Garner and Tommy Lee Jones and Clint Eastwood, of course, because he directed it, and Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
on this. Wasn't James Cromwell?
probably.
Somebody,
He probably worked for NASA or something.
because he had the four main guys, and then there was like the military guy who, like, even in the flashback that started off the movie, he was a giant, just a giant a hole.
That seems like a Cromwell role.
You know? Yeah,
You
it was so weird.
the other our other favorite movie came out this year, Hollow Man, which is appropriate to talk about again now that there's been another Invisible Man movie.
Oh,
This movie was one that they really were trying to get people to think it was going to be a big deal. They pushed
oh,
it. They pushed this movie hard.
wasn't this actually a hit though?
It might have made its money back, but it seemed like it just kind of disappeared quick.
Um, I remember the kind of marketing material for this led everyone to believe that Elizabeth Shue was kind of the main character, and then you find out she wasn't.
Because I'm trying, isn't like Brolin's in this movie? Oh, here we go. Here we go. The budget was 95 million, and it made 190. So it did okay.
Yeah,
It did. I guess it did do okay.
I remember this. This is the movie that started off those stupid conversations like, "Oh, if you were invisible, what'd you do?" You
Yeah,
know, people try to put like a really bad twist on it, like, "Oh, I'd go, I, yeah." Anyway,
yeah. I'd spy on
it's
my neighbors. Wink, wink. Uh,
like I'd sneak into a bank and I don't know,
yeah,
but yeah, this is one of those movies, and it was like one of the few times like Kevin Bacon was playing just a complete sociopath, which I think he had only done a couple times before.
yeah. And then he kind of made it a thing for a while. So looking over other movies of this year, I mean, you had your What Lies Beneath, your Little Nicky, Pay It Forward. I mean, it was just kind of. I think it's safe to say that we can complain about movies now, but I think it was probably better. A lot of years, or at least a little better than this one was.
Yeah,
Where
like most.
we only really got a handful of memorable movies that we still would like to watch.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people saw Pay It Forward, but oh, I remember everyone saying, "Oh, you got to pay it forward." It's like, no, you
People still
don't.
say that. Social media brought back
Oh,
that term.
and
Uh,
then I think from what I remember, the movie just seemed depressing for like to get kind of people to watch it, and just
yeah. It's a kind of a depressing movie that ends super depressing, but they try to pass it off as like happy.
Yeah, it was quote unquote meant to be inspirational. It's like, who are you trying to inspire with this?
Bullies? I don't know. uh yeah, and so I mean there's just a lot of random things. So I think it's safe to say that probably what would our highlights be? Unbreakable, Gladiator. For me, I don't know about you, but Chicken Run.
It was okay.
And then yeah, well you did mention that you uh think highly of what'd you say? Titan AE.
Yeah.
So, would you give that one maybe like people to check it out? Do you think that's one that's worth
I,
checking? Let's say you had never seen it. Do you think this is a movie that somebody might still like now?
yeah, if you're into sci-fi, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, probably.
I think Drew Barrymore is like the plays the female.
Yes. That's who it was. I was trying to remember who the girl voice was. It was Drew
Yeah,
Barrymore.
her
Um,
her and Matt Damon play off each other pretty well. It's just yeah, it's it's a one and done story. Like they didn't. I think they realized, oh, there's not going to be sequels, so it's a fun little romp in
fun little
space.
romp. Yeah. And I guess for me, oh, The Patriot. That was the other one we realized was a
Yeah,
good one from this year. So I would say, yeah, if you're into like maybe historical movies or historical action movies and somehow miss that one, that's one that's worthy to check out. And you get to see early Heath Ledger role where he's
yeah,
not the star, but he's still a really solid supporting actor.
yeah. It's I remember What Lies Beneath mostly because there's one scene in there that got everybody talking, but I thought the movie was kind of boring, and then wasn't that the movie that kind of made people notice Naomi Watts?
I don't remember. All I remember about that movie is it's really boring for like a huge twist. And then the
They
huge
were
and then the huge twist is actually kind of obvious when you think about it a second.
Yeah, it's M Night Shyamalan wouldn't have been a thing, but it's like were they trying to? Because out Shyamalan, Shyamalan,
Well, I mean, it would have made sense because Sixth Sense would have been a year before,
Yeah,
and so it would make sense that somebody would try to capitalize on that pretty quick,
yeah,
to try to be kind of the next big thing. Because that kind of became really the curse of Shyamalan for a while is what's the twist going to be? And then it became I'm sick of his twists, and yeah, that whole thing.
yeah. Somebody should have told him he didn't have to have a twist in every movie, which I think took him a while to learn.
Yeah, yeah. But still, I would say. But speaking of Shyamalan, Unbreakable is definitely probably at the top of my list for his best movies. So if you haven't seen that one, that's worth checking out. Way more than Glass.
It's oh man, it sucks because you have Unbreakable, then you have Split, and it's like they culminate in Glass, and it's just
Yeah, yeah. Because
I
Split is still is a good movie too. Just Glass didn't quite pull it off, but it was an interesting experiment. Yeah, sorry that maybe this one seems a little more lackluster, but as we were like talking about this this was kind of a lackluster year. Nothing really too shining. I mean,
uh,
like I said, there were just those few really strong movies in the midst of a bunch of poop. So,
yeah, it's just
because it's safe to say, Meet the Parents, Scary Movie, What Lies Beneath, Final Destination, none of those really hold up.
you
At
know
all.
what's sad?
Bring It
Scary
On
movie.
doesn't hold up.
The the very first Scary Movie is probably the only one that has any sort of genuine humor in it. The rest are all just garbage.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of
Oh,
those things that those are made to be so in the moment with their comedy that even though maybe you could argue, oh, that's the best one, that really isn't saying much for how good it still
yeah.
is. Yeah.
I think a lot of younger guys kind of went to that movie just because Shannon Elizabeth was in it too. I mean,
Oh, sure. Yeah, coming off her American Pie fame.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It could be. But with that,
Oh.
keep heart, people, for because maybe the what we can learn here is that you can have an off year, but good things are still we're still to come. We still weren't there, and that's what we can say maybe about right now is we're going through a rough patch, but we just got to keep hope, and it'll pass. So, but with that, I think we'll just kind of bring this one to a close. We thank you for listening. Hopefully, you found something in there worth holding your attention to the end.
Oh man, this is I don't know. It's just why does this seem so disappointing?
I think it's because we're realizing this was just kind of a sad year.
Oh man,
So, yeah.
It's here's my thing. When people are young and they're kind of getting into movies, like you know, this around the time I would have been like, do you think there's people out there like some of the movies we just trashed do they actually hold these up or
Well,
does anybody?
but I think what's interesting though is we would have been right in the middle of our teenage years this year. And then if you think about some of these movies, at the time, I did really like Mission Impossible 2. And, I used to think Meet the Parents was pretty funny. But I think the lesson here we're learning is that with maturity, you gain perspective and wisdom, and you shed the things of the past of your childish. I think maybe we can use it as a cautionary tale for our younger viewers to be smarter in the decisions you make.
It's just here's the thing, like, okay, scary movie, big deal. Final Destination, big deal. But like, who exactly is going to fight and die on these hills?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, even like my favorite movies of this year, I don't know if I'd be willing to fight, die on that hill.
Oh man, it's just is it because 2000? Wow, I almost said 2009. Is it because 1999 was just so good? Like all the good ideas were taken.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like you like I was saying, you have your off years, and maybe this one was just a little bit more the off year. So,
oh man,
they put all of their stock into. What would be interesting is maybe we should break the trend and come back and do 2001 and see if that was any better. I almost feel like we need to now.
Here's what's difficult right now. If we had to make a top 10 list of movies from 2000, I'd cut it down to 3. Be like, bam, here's your 3.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to look at 2001 quick. Yep, Dakota, you know what? I can already tell you 2001's better.
Oh, good. Let me guess, something came out right away that just kind of...
Well, you had the beginning of Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
Which, even if you think the first one is maybe like a little kidsy now, that's a great franchise. You had Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
You had Monsters, Inc.
So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You had Warner Brothers and New Line kick off two completely different franchises in the same year.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Both in that fantasy realm too. That's what's kind of cool is like fantasy really started taking off. But like I said, then you had Monsters Inc., which was a great Pixar movie. Black Hawk Down. So even the historical movies were getting better. Let's see. We have, Hannibal, Mummy Returns. Those ones weren't so good. Trying to find Princess Diaries was a big hit, I guess. But I would say even with just thinking in terms of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Lord of the Rings and Monsters Inc. and Training Day and Shrek. I don't really like Shrek, but
Oh, come on, man.
you already have a little bit more of a solid year though. In Black Hawk Down.
Well,
and A Knight's Tale. A Knight's Tale came out. That's a fun movie with Heath Ledger. So I would say 2001 hit the stride a little bit more than
Okay, here's the real question. Was it that they had more better movies, or was it just the fact that the year wasn't laden with just horrible crap?
Well, that might have been so, but at the same time, I will tell you, here's what else came out in 2001. Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Oh god.
Pootie Tang.
Oh,
Pearl Harbor.
oh
Ghosts of Mars. Jurassic Park 3. Jeepers Creepers. And so, I mean, there still were like...
Hey,
But 2001 started the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Ooh.
So, yeah, and Jeepers Creepers, I guess people do like that one. So,
yes.
Spirited Away came out in 2001.
Oh, nice.
And so, I mean, yeah, maybe it was just, like I said, I think maybe you just can't have all your great ones come out in the same year. And so, things just kind of flip and flop a little bit. But I think we can say, here's your example, people, that remember there's always hope. We're in 2020 now, and people are thinking it's pretty bleak right now. Have hope. So, but yeah, with that, I think we'll bring this one to a close. Again, thank you for listening. And remember, you can always find us in all those places, especially Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, any podcast place. So we hope you do that. And we will catch you next time. So this is Steven.
This is Dakota.
Take it easy.